Hello everyone. So yeah, we're on to our next presentation. This one is the solar home conversion experience. So we're going to learn about solar conversion from community members and also some experts. So with us right now we have Jason E. Baxter. He's a resident of Haverford Township. He's also a professor of chemical engineering at Drexel University, where he teaches a course on the fundamentals of solar cells. And he also has a bachelor's degree from the University of Delaware and a PhD from the University of California, Santa Barbara, both in chemical engineering. And we're also going to hear from James Knopfs. He is a volunteer with Haverford Township Environmental Advisory Committee and is climate change subcommittee. And he focuses on empowering customers to harness the sun for the greater good. With that, let's welcome Jason and James, and then we'll hear from a panel of community members. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I'm Jason Baxter, and I'm going to talk about my own experience going solar, which we did in 2012. Okay, so start off with a picture of my house. So this is 1713 Sue Ellen Drive in Havertown. We installed our solar panels in 2012. We use MT Rule Electrical Contracting. They're from Norristown, so there are many different choices of installers, as James will tell you, but we decided to use a local electrician. The amount of panels that you see here on our rooftop actually supplies 100% of our electricity over the year. So we do have gas for heat and hot water, but all of our electricity comes from solar. Okay, so I assume that you're here because you may have some interest, or maybe you have friends or neighbors who have interest in putting solar on their property. So there's a couple of quick questions that you should ask yourself as you're getting started right off the bat. So first is, does your roof face south? Okay, it doesn't have to face perfectly south. Within 45 degrees is fine, but you want to be pretty well facing south. How old is your roof? So this is one of the first questions that potential installers will ask you. Nobody wants to put solar panels on a 20-year-old roof, and then in a couple of years you have to replace the roof. That requires taking off the panels, changing the roof, then putting the panels back on. So it's always good to redo your roof before you're going to have to do solar if it's old. Third question, is your roof shaded? So even if your roof faces south, if there's a big tree that covers half of the roof for until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, then that's going to be problematic. So even partial shading can be a problem. Although James will talk about how microinverters can help. What is your roof tilt? So generally the optimal roof tilt is whatever your latitude is. So for us that's around 40 degrees. But really it's not a big deal. It's not very sensitive to roof tilt. If your roof doesn't work, but you have a big yard, maybe ground mounting would be possible. You see this at a lot of farms and different places around. And then finally, if you answered the wrong answer to any of these questions, but you're still interested in doing good for the environment, you are welcome to consider purchasing green energy through your utility company. You don't have to put solar panels on your own roof to make a difference. Okay, so I want to talk with just a couple pieces of terminology before we get into the rest of the presentation. First is efficiency. So you might hear about the efficiency of solar panels. And this is the ratio of electrical power you get out of the solar panels to the light power that is incident on the panels. So 15 to 20% efficiency is a normal number for the types of silicon modules that most people are buying right now. That's actually pretty good. The theoretical limit for efficiency is around 32%. So the technology is actually pretty good. And getting closer becomes much more expensive. Also, the difference between power and energy. So power is a rate of energy production or a rate of energy consumption. For solar panels, power comes as current times voltage. So it's reported in kilowatts or watts. Kilowatt is 1,000 watts. So when you want to buy a photovoltaic or PV system, they are sized not in square feet, but in their peak production, which is in kilowatts. So the system that covers the roof of my house is about 6.4 kilowatts, and that is the most electricity that it could be producing, say at noon in June. Finally, energy. So energy is power times time, and it is reported in kilowatt hours. So if you look at your electricity bill, your utility company will tell you how many kilowatt hours of energy did you use in the last month. So the number of kilowatt hours per year that you can get from a given PV system depends on its location. So if you take the same panel and put it in Arizona, it will produce more than if you put it here. And if you put it here, it will produce more than if you put it in Alaska. So the same system can give different amounts of energy over the year. Okay, so if you think you might want to install a system, you have to think, how big should your system be? So again, there's a framework for thinking about this. One place to start is how much electricity do you consume annually? So for our household, we consume about 8,000 kilowatt hours per year, maybe 8,000 to 10,000 kilowatt hours per year is typical family consumption. You can calculate that if you install a kilowatt of solar panels on your house, you will get about 1,250 kilowatt hours per year in this region. Okay, so for us, we've got our 6.4 kilowatt system. It makes about 8,000 kilowatt hours in a year. Okay, so for a typical family, you would need about 6.4 to 8.3 kilowatt system to cover all of your usage. And we generally recommend trying to cover about 80 to 100% of your current needs. We don't recommend trying to oversize your system. There is net metering, so you can get paid if you produce a little bit more than you consume. But PECO does not want residents to be producers of electricity, so they will only pay you if you up to about 110% of your consumption. So they'll pay you if you make a little extra, but they won't pay you if you make double what you need. Okay, so that's how much would you want. The second question is how much area do you have? So how much area on your rooftop do you have to place the panels? General calculation says you can get about 15 watts per square foot for the peak power of your panel. So our roof has 26 panels. Those panels are about 3 by 5 feet. So they make 245 watts each, or 6.4 kilowatts total. And then the next question is, what is your budget? So prices of solar panels have come down dramatically. So now you can get panels for roughly $2 to $3 per watt. So in 2012, just 6 years ago, I was paying $4 per watt for mine, but they've dropped essentially in half in the last 6 years. So what this means is you would be paying about $12,000 to $18,000 as the upfront cost for a typical rooftop system. If this is not reasonable, there are also other kinds of leasing types of agreements that James will mention later. Okay, so you're going to want to be connected to the grid. So the grid effectively acts as your battery and uses a system that's called net metering. So as of now, the only utility company that will do this is PECO, so you kind of lose your choice of who your utility company is, but you're producing your own electricity anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. So what happens is you get a meter for your production, a meter for how much electricity is coming into your house, and a meter for how much electricity you are putting out. So there are times when you're making more than you consume, and in those cases you push the electricity out to the grid. There's other times when you are consuming more than you're producing, and then you take electricity from the grid. So what PECO does is at the end of the month, it takes your total kilowatt hours that you have taken in, and it subtracts the amount that you have pushed out to the grid, and you owe the difference. So sometimes you'll have a surplus, sometimes you'll have a deficit. If you have an annual surplus, PECO will pay you once a year if you made more for the entire year than you produced. Okay, so this is really a big benefit of solar. If there was no net metering, it would be really hard to justify purchasing solar. But the fact that you can exchange energy with the grid at any given time makes it a pretty good bet. Question? Yes?
Yeah, I'm worried about snow load on roofs, and then when you put this on top of it, and I'm not sure my roof was ever constructed for all that extra weight.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Great question. I have a slide for that in a few minutes, so if you can hang tight, I'll get to it. So one final comment here on connecting to the grid. Going off the grid, to some people seems like an appealing idea, but actually that requires a very large and expensive battery system to store enough electricity, for the next time it gets sunny, if it's cloudy or snowy for a long time. So we don't recommend that you attempt to go off the grid if you're living right here, where we have a perfectly good grid. Okay, so simplified economics of owning photovoltaics. So I mentioned that the prices have come way, way down in the last few years, but it's still expensive. So it's about $8,000 to $14,000 for a 6 kilowatt system. This is after the rebates. Okay, so it's maybe $2 to $3 per watt initially. We currently have a 30% federal tax credit, which James will mention later. There is no more Pennsylvania subsidy, but the prices have come down a lot since that subsidy was in place, so it kind of evens out. So after rebates, you can expect to pay $8,000 to $14,000. The 6 kilowatt system will produce about 7,200 kilowatt hours per year. If you're paying about 15 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity, this means you have about $1,150 per year that you don't have to spend on electricity because your solar panels are providing that electricity for you. There's also something called solar renewable energy credits, or SRECs. Utilities are required to buy a certain amount of renewable power, and they can pay residents for the rights to claim the power on your roof as their renewable power. These are not worth a whole lot, but it might be about $50 per year or so for a household system. So overall, you save or earn about $1,200 per year. So if it costs you $12,000 to put the system there, your payback is about 10 years. If you got a better deal on your solar panels, maybe it's 7 years. So it's maybe 7 to 10 years. The good news here is that your system is going to last 30 plus years, so you essentially get more than 20 years of free electricity after you have reached this payback time. So this calculation is sensitive to a number of things. If you can get a better price on your system, obviously your payback comes sooner and your overall benefit is bigger. If utility prices go up, that's actually good for you if you have solar panels. You're saving more money if other people are paying more and you don't have to. And it depends on the orientation and the shading of your roof. So the sunnier your spot is, the better off you are. Okay, so that's the quick picture of solar, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our own installation experience. So here's a sky view of our house. So we're the gray house there, and we are facing about, southeast-ish, and this is close enough. There is a tree to the east of our house, but it really doesn't shade the roof, so we're in pretty good shape there. There is a great online tool called Google Project Sunroof, and James may say a bit more about this as well. It will tell you about the suitability of your own address. So you can type in your address in Google Project Sunroof, and it will tell you your projected number of sun hours per year. So for our house, it's about a little over 1,500 hours of usable sunlight per year. This is a good number. You can kind of see our house there is the one with the red pin on it, and our front roof is bright yellow. Okay, that's a good thing. If you look at some of the other houses that are kind of purplish because they're surrounded by trees, that's not going to be a good choice to install solar. But a lot of my neighbors could install solar. So far none have, but hopefully some will soon. So this is just to give you an idea of the scale of one solar panel. It's about 5 feet by 3 feet. This particular one, in peak sunlight would produce about 245 watts, and we have 26 of these on our roof. Okay, in response to the woman's question a little bit earlier, you might need to do something with your roof to make sure that it takes the weight. So we have a 1960s era house, had only 2x6s, I think, in the attic. So we needed to put a little bit of extra bracing in there, so this costs a few $100s. As part of your installation project, towards the beginning, they will have a structural engineer come and assess your roof, make sure it's got the right kind of support. These things weigh probably 3 pounds per square foot, so it's not super heavy, but it's heavy enough that you have to make sure that you have the right support. Also, they should come and check your electrical panel. We had to upgrade our electrical panel when we went to install the solar. Since we used an electrician, he actually just kind of threw this in for free as part of the project. So it's about a 3-day job for them to actually install the panels. First, they do all of the mechanical racking. So they do all the appropriate kind of flashing and things that any roofer would do around the windows and so forth to make sure it's all watertight. They also then put all of the different electrical into the racking. Okay, so this basically takes a day to do all the work on your roof. Second day, they are installing all of these solar panels. I was quite impressed by these guys climbing up on a tall ladder, hauling a 50-pound solar panel on their back with one hand. But they got them all up there. They said for big jobs they have actual equipment. So they mount them all up, connect them, and then this is what the back of my house now looks like. There's a number of extra pieces of equipment. The electrical comes down from the roof. It comes into this production meter. Okay, so this keeps track of how much we have produced over the lifetime of the system. Solar panels produce direct current, but the grid is alternating current. So we have this device called an inverter. Okay, so this takes DC to AC and makes sure that your house can't tell the difference of whether the electricity came from your solar panels or from the grid. We have then two separate meters. One is an in meter, so when we're using more than we consume, this meter spins. When we're producing more than what we need, then this meter spins and we're giving the extra electricity out to the grid. So as I said before, at the end of the month, PICO subtracts what you consumed minus what you produced, and you are owing the difference. It comes with a nice monitoring system, so here we can see what every panel is doing. I can monitor this from anywhere there's an internet connection and see, if all the panels are behaving. I can see if it's partially snow covered, which ones are working and which ones are still covered in snow. It keeps track over the course of the year, so it does what you expect. We get more production in the summer and less in the winter. Kind of got these seasonal patterns. We can look at a given month and see there are certain months, usually spring and fall, where we are producing more than we consume. In the summer, it's about even because we're using the air conditioner. In the winter, we're a little down because it's not as sunny. Okay, you can look at a given week and see, there are these nice tall peaks that come from nice sunny days. Over here we have kind of a cloudy, rainy day. So it keeps track of all these things for you. You can look at day-to-day variations. This is all just to say that net metering is important. Being connected to the grid is important because there are times when you're not producing what you need, but since you're connected to the grid, it's not a big problem. So last informational slide, how long do solar panels last? They're guaranteed to last for at least 30 years. So most places will have a warranty that they will be producing at least 80% of their initial production after 30 years. Okay, so they last a long time. You might have to replace the inverters. Halfway through, this is a cost of about $2,000. It might come after around 15 years. But some have even longer warranties than that. There's very little maintenance that is required. If you put these things on a tilted roof, rain washes them. You don't need to worry about washing them or paying for any kind of contract to wash them. That's just people trying to take your money. Rain is good enough around here. So it's pretty worry-free. Okay, so my last slide is just right here. I am a professor at Drexel. My email is right here, jbaxter@drexel.edu. I welcome you to contact me. I'm going to have to run out right after the session, but you're welcome to contact me if you like afterwards. Okay, so I'll pass it off to James. Yep. Thank you, Jake.
Price for solar, was that installed? Because I'm buying my panels at 52 cents a watt now.
So the price that I gave includes everything. So it includes the panels themselves, all the installation. My installer took care of all paperwork and permitting and all that kind of stuff. So that was the full job. The full job except for the extra buttressing of a roof. Okay. That was a few $100.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. We can take questions now, it's fine.
On a cloudy day, do you still get some, or a partially cloudy day, do you still get some generation?
There's some, yeah. I mean, the sunniest day we ever had, we got 44 kilowatt hours in one day. If it's kind of a rainy day in the wintertime, maybe you'll get 5 kilowatt hours. So it makes a big difference. And if you're fully covered by snow, then you get 0. But it's not really important that you make enough electricity for that day. It's just if you average over the entire year that you have enough. That's what really matters. Do we want to?
Yeah, let's push through this, and I'll put it off to our panelists, and we can answer questions that way. Great. All right, so going solar definitely can be easy. I worked in the industry for about 7 years, from sales, operations to marketing. So I'm pretty familiar with what it takes to kind of go through due diligence and make sure that you guys are as prepared as possible to not only finance it, but find the right installer. And a lot of other things I want to review today. So I want to go over solar as an investment, what to expect to get as payback, and compare those to some other things. I'll go over shopping for solar and the viability of solar, how you can plan to finance it, what are the means today that are available, what's more popular today than it was maybe 2-3 years ago. I'm going to go over maintenance and care, and then any sort of things that you guys ask. I have slides to support that, but won't go over it today if not warranted. So first, solar cost and return on investment. So the cost of solar is typically represented in a dollar per watt nomenclature is decreasing year over year, pretty significantly. We just went over a second ago how much it's gone over even since Jason has installed it a while ago. It's actually the first year there, 2012. We're looking at about $477 on average per watt across the country. We've come all the way down to about $295 a watt. And even in Pennsylvania today, we're looking at $1.93 to $2.41 per watt. I'm going to bounce in between national averages and Pennsylvania averages because obviously one's more important than the other, especially for us. We're at the average system size. What we can say is 10 kW. It's easy to kind of extrapolate that out. It's at $19,300. It's at $24,100. But there's a lot more that kind of goes into that. I don't want to go over that in more detail here. So soft costs range widely between large national and small regional installers. You saw those bars that were cut up in the previous slide, and everything that kind of goes into the cost per watt. There's a lot of overhead, soft costs, hard costs, hardware, and that sort of thing. But if you look at it in terms of the different sort of installers that you can go to when you're shopping, some considerations that you can have. The difference between someone like Sunrun or Vivint or Solar City, which is now Tesla Solar, versus someone like Jason went with, a small regional installer, there's going to be a lot of trade-offs that you're going to see, especially when it comes to costs. One of the primary things that you'll see and primary differences or contributors to the cost difference is customer acquisition cost. So for a company like Solar City, Vivint Solar, or Sunrun, that's all the way to the left there, their customer acquisition cost, the cost to find you guys and deliver a sales pitch to you, is anywhere between $4,000 and $5,000. And when you work that down to a longer tail, less than 100 kilowatts per year, and that's your electricians, your HVAC technicians that adopted solar as a sort of aspect or a different channel of their business, that's a lot smaller, as you can imagine. That's between $1,000 and $2,000. Solar is expensive. We just found that out. You probably knew that, but it's definitely worth it. The core value in going solar is its lifetime value. So you're not going to see payback, just as Jason didn't necessarily until maybe in PA about 10 to 12 years is the average. Solar also, there's other benefits. It stabilizes and eliminates or significantly decreases your utility rates. So you're thinking about on your utility bill, it says the price to compare, that's the generation, and that's what kind of undulates up and down significantly. That's 7.16 cents per kilowatt hour. Probably double that when you contribute transmission, generation, distribution charges. So that's the price figure that you want to think about, especially in this PICO area. Going further as an investment, it's definitely worth it. So when you look at things like a living room addition or minor kitchen remodels, you think about the home that you live in. You all are homeowners, and you want to get the most return on your investment as possible when it comes to home improvements. I think it's fair to assess solar as a home improvement that you would get a return on investment for. So comparing those things, solar is definitely a front runner and a leader for return on investment. And on average, from the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, LBL, it's about 119% of what you put into it, you get back from it over the lifetime of that system. It also adds value to your home, greater than cost to compare home improvement projects. How are we going to finance it? You have a multitude of options here. You can definitely get a short-term loan, and that resembles more of a car payment. You can look at long-term loans. They have replaced the PPA or lease format that you've seen in the past. So that's where somebody else owns the system that the roof goes on your house. You continue to pay a bill, but instead of it going to PICO, the money goes somewhere else to whoever is owning the system on your roof. That's a little less popular now. And then always better, cash, and you break even a lot quicker with cash, just because you're removing the middleman. So you break even at year 6 with cash, and cash flow positive at year 11. So if you look at the different options here that I have set out on the right, the difference between a 15-year loan, it's light blue, 5-year loan, dark blue, cash, it's green, and then just no solar at all. you really start to see the economics of how you want to finance it and how that option should contribute to your decision when you want to finance your solar system. Obviously, with if you don't go solar, that you're just losing money every time you pay your utility bill. If you pay with cash, you start gaining almost right away, and you're in the black at year 11. If you look at it, annualized rate of return and compare it to other things, right now in Pennsylvania, it's closer to 7.5% to 8%. Places like California or Massachusetts, where it was mentioned recently, they have a lot of cap and trade policies and all those regional policies that support the installation and the advancement of solar. It's a lot higher, it's closer to 12. But right now in Pennsylvania, at where it is with the net metering policies, SRECs where they are in Pennsylvania, and the overall payback with what you put out and what you get back, solar panels are about 7.5% to 8%. If you want to compare that to things like U.S. equities, U.S. Treasury bonds, or CDs, it's definitely a less risky investment when you want to think about it that way, especially when you're thinking 10, 12, 15, 30 years in advance. I think the decision is a lot easier to make. There's a lot of providers, loan providers out there that do support solar, actually specialize in solar. Obviously, you can get, if you have a credit union, you can always go there. That's usually the easiest route first to go. But there's other companies, loan providers, that have a lot of different products out there at a lot of different rates. These are some of the leaders. When I worked in the solar industry, we dealt with SunGage, Sunlight, Sonova, Enerbank, and those are the only ones that we work with. And then there's other ones that are available. I think some are a little bit more regionalized, but I think this is where you would want to start if you're pricing this sort of thing out, depending on what product you want, whether it be a 5-year loan or a 20-year loan or a 25-year loan. Obviously, the dynamics of a payback play a lot differently, as exhibited in the chart earlier. What sort of solar incentives go into contributing to the payment of that system? Net metering, it's great. Jason will tell you that. It's basically the grid is your battery. You don't have to buy a battery. There's no reason to buy a battery that you have to replace in 10 years anyway with the technology where it is. The grid is your battery, and that's one of Pennsylvania's greatest attributes and contributions towards solar is requiring or asking utility companies to kind of support that system. There's obviously the 30% tax rebate. We take 30% off, or tax credit, my bad, where you take 30% off the top. And then PA SRECs, they're not necessarily as good as what they are in Massachusetts and California, what I was mentioning about. But I think, would you say $50?
It's about $50 a year.
$50 a year. It's better than $0 a year. So I talked about the investment tax credit, the 30%. That's not going to last forever. And when you want to go through your due diligence with solar, think about how long that's going to take and how that plays into this. It's been 30% for some time now, but it's going to start to wind down, especially for the average consumer, starting after 2019, 2020, 2021. So if you want to take advantage of that 30%, I definitely recommend you start looking now if you haven't started already. If you want to take advantage of that 30%. But if the decision gets pushed off, it's a sort of die-off period to make sure that the market doesn't completely collapse for installers. So you pretty much figured out, you made a decision that you wanted to go solar, you found the way, or at least partially decided on the way you want to finance it. Now you want to find your installer. Review sites, they're anecdotal. They provide a great starting point for your search. There's a lot of sites you go to. I don't go to a single restaurant unless I hit up Yelp first and figure out whether or not that restaurant's worth going to. Solar installers or any home contractor for that matter is no different, except there are specialized sites. There's sites like Energy Sage that help you go solar, help you make a decision, help you find installers. Solarviews.com, that's a solar-specific website that you'll probably find the highest volume of solar company reviews. Home Advisor, and then obviously the Better Business Bureau is always probably ground zero for those sort of things. You're going to find curated reviews at the Better Business Bureau, and then you probably want to work your way downward or upward in this case. And as always, search out family, friends, or neighbors for insight on their experience, and that's why we have our panelists here today to answer questions at the end and let you know what about their experience can help you guys make your decision much more wiser than you would have otherwise. So there's obviously large companies and big companies. I already reviewed this, but what are the trade-offs between the two of them? So with a large company, you're looking at a turnkey experience. Maybe they'll find your financer for you. They'll help you make that decision. They'll give you a little bit of money to kind of contribute to make sure that you guys don't have to make a decision from the point in which you sign the contract, the point in which you have that federal tax incentive in your pocket. What you risk, though, is having inexperienced employees, limited hardware offerings, they buy in bulk, and high soft costs. But what you get in return is low hard costs, a broad product offering, and things like that. Small company, on the other hand, it's a great personalized experience. There's long-term employees, so you don't have to worry about the installer on your roof, whether or not he's been there for 2 years, just that season, or 5 years. You're more likely to get a more stable cohort of employees with a smaller company. Sometimes smaller companies have a more narrow product offering, but they have a broad hardware offering. There are high hard costs, obviously, but lower soft costs. We were talking about customer acquisition costs and how that differs between the bigger guys and the smaller guys. But always, you want to research and find out what you want, then line up your suitors. Consider all the things that are important to you. And for me, I used to do everything around my yard. I used to cut my own lawn. Now I hire someone to do it because I'm a little bit older than I used to be, and have kind of exhausted that for myself. Same thing goes for solar. In your search, you always want to look at some key things. Some things that we made sure that we had on our belt when I was with a solar company is make sure that they're NABCEP certified. That's the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners. You want to see whether or not they provide a production guarantee. Is what they're quoting you actually what you're going to get, and what if it produces a little bit less? Are they going to supplement that? A lot of larger companies give you that production guarantee. Do they provide a maintenance guarantee? Do they stand behind their work? Will they be here in 20 years and service it when you're getting a leak? Do they care if it gets a leak in 20 years? And then also have a portfolio. Do they have a portfolio of local installs that you can drive to see, maybe knock on somebody's door, figure out whether or not they did right by them? Always ask for those things when you sit down with somebody or start a conversation over email. So when you sit down, you always have the best way to think about what solar panels that you want on your roof. There's always the good, better, best model. That's probably how they're going to pitch it to you. The good is the poly module. It's blue. It's great value, but it's a lower production per panel. Better, that's when you start to see your black modules, a little bit better production value. And then the premium mono, the best, all black, 350 watts, 365 watts. And there's usually a premium on the best option because it's always leading edge technology that you're getting, and it almost double the cost in a lot of cases. So consider those things. Also, when we're looking at things like hardware, the value and what we have here, there's the N-phase microinverter that's and the solar edge inverter. They're both module level production. So power electronics that are actually on the roof at the individual panel level to make sure that you're getting the most out of each individual panel. And that's what Jason had on his house. He had the second one down, the solar edge inverter. So one thing you get with N-phase that you don't get with solar edge is a lot less on-ground equipment as opposed to solar edge where you have a little bit more. You have a central inverter. Some people call that a central point of failure. But really it's something that you guys should consider what you want. There's a lot of payoff between the two. Again, good, better, best. And then finally, SMA inverter, you don't get that module level power electronics, you don't get equipment in each module, but you do have a central inverter, and if you have wide open sun and no shade, it kind of requires module level management of the sunlight that panel accepts, then SMA inverter is the best sort of value that you guys are going to get. SMA is a brand, there's other brands, but SMA is kind of like the, what kilowatts is this serial? Finally, once you have a pretty good idea of what you want and what to expect from each of those installers, you always want to line up 3 or more installers. People that line up 3 or more installers, and this is proven, and you get multiple codes, you're likely to save 10% or more on average. It's the same thing that if you saw a Volkswagen Golf that you're looking to buy at dealer A, you find that same Volkswagen Golf at dealer B. First thing you do is either email them and tell them that dealer A has it for cheaper than dealer B, or vice versa, and you get them to kind of compete with each other. And one great way to do it, Jason talked about the Google Project Sunroof. One thing that does is empower you and allows you to kick off the conversation with installers every email. So you're a lead. If you sound like you know exactly what you're talking about, they're going to approach you a lot differently than if someone that kind of backed into it, not knowing too much about the solar. So again, Project Sunroof, Energy Sage, My Solar Reviews are a great place to start, to find those email addresses to the installers, and then kind of get competing bids over email. You don't even have to go out necessarily before you get started. And that's about all I had today. I'm going to call up or ask our panelists to introduce themselves. No? Yeah, you guys want to sit up here? You guys can each kind of give you your brief experience. What year you went solar, I think is important, how long you've had solar on your roof, and then just a brief introduction of yourself. And then once they're done, we'll open up the floor for questions.
Who goes first, me?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
like that.
Open my mouth first. My name is Nick DePatry, and so I'm an engineer, but I got rooftop solar on my house, and so it's been about a year I've had it. It's been live for a little over a year in my house. I live in Bryn Mawr, southern part of Bryn Mawr. And what were all the questions I was supposed to answer?
How long you've had solar on your house?
Got that one check.
Your background, I'm pretty sure you.
Okay, so I'm an engineer, electrical engineer, software engineer, but that didn't have too much of a play in this because it was all really confusing to me. So I hope I can share some of my clarity I got over just by talking to the professional installers. And actually, the cool thing about what's that?
What company you went?
Oh, I went with Solar States. And I had a reference, I had a friend who knew the owner, and I had dinner with the owner before I even used the system. But I actually called lots of people, and the coolest thing about my install, I'll tell you, is that NPR actually did a story, and NPR is at my house, and they covered it, and it was all like in the papers and stuff. So if you Google my name, Nick DePatry Solar, you'll see some embarrassing quotes from me, I'm sure. So that's my claim to fame.
Thanks. Noel Smith. I've had solar in my house for about 12 years. I guess an early adopter. Paid a lot more than what they paid on theirs. Also an engineer and information technology professional. And
All right, Jason Dexter, you were here for mine, so pass it along.
My name's Mike Schneller. I do not have solar on my roof because I have a giant tree in my backyard and I don't want to take it down. It's like the tree of life, so I don't have solar on my. I'm here because I'm a realtor and also an energy advisor. And I want to, if anybody has questions about what solar and energy efficiency does to the value of your home, which they didn't get into anything about net present value or anything like that, it's significant, folks. So that's why I'm here to answer questions. Go ahead, sir.
I'm Rick Denzine. I am a recording engineer, member of the producers wing of NARIS, which is the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences. And I have a solar array which I built myself.
Good to hear.
Well, I'm going to open up the floor to questions. Also, before you guys go, we're looking to try to spark a solarized experience, a solarized program in Haverford Township, Lower Marion Township, and these sort of localities to help take advantage of the 30% tax credit before it goes away completely. So there's a sign-up sheet before you guys go out. If you're interested in volunteering to help facilitate the Solarize program, if you're interested in participating in the Solarize program, we would love your email address. Also, we'll be able to pass along everything our panelists went over today, from what installers they went with to any sort of contact information required to help you guys get over that inertia and make your decision to get started. So I'm going to open it up.
Already asked this. I think Tesla's coming out with these like roof tiles. Does
Right.
anybody know anything about that? Because
Solar
that-
glass.
Yeah, that sounds cool to me. And the second thing is, why don't we have more community solar? If you have a lot of people with, you know, shade on their roofs, why can't the townships be building something that, you know, like they have a lot of land, they could stick some, you know, so they have parking lots, they have some schools. That's why, I can't understand why there's not more of that going on, because a lot of people would sign up for that, I think. So anyone can address.
One of the slides up here mentioned a company called Mosaic as a financing source.
Yeah.
Mosaic actually builds and invests in large scale solar projects. And you can, for as little as I think 50 or $100, you can actually invest in any of their solar projects. It's sort of like a GoFundMe for solar. So you can invest and get the industry. The only problem is in this state, it's not able. You can't do a Mosaic type thing because it's not a registered security in this state, right? So that's an issue, right? So, but you know, that's probably why there's not as much community solar, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's some state regulation
yeah.
prohibiting.
There's a state regulation
Community
prohibiting,
solar.
right? So in other words, what the Mosaic model is about is they'll go out to a brownfield and put up solar, right? But you as an investor, the only way you can get money back is they just have to pay you directly, which is okay, right? But in other states, you can actually deduct the amount of solar that's being produced from that project from your meter.
One-on-one relationship
Right,
exists.
right. And so we don't have that. It's illegal in this state, you know, because it's not legal, right? So you can't do that.
So I'll just add, there is some experimentation. It's a brilliant question, and it is part of the solution if we ever get there. But in Brooklyn, New York, there is a community solar project that's a microgrid where they actually do participate and share a shared resource amongst neighbors. So the idea is there. It's a concept that I think hopefully we'll see in the future with some regulatory changes in that. About the Tesla stuff, I guess the roof panels or the glass roof, as you call it. I think it's just early. They're still like doing, I would call it proof of concepts with real homeowners. So it's not fully baked yet. It's very expensive. Again, I'll just think that it's coming, but it's not quite ready for.
They just recently announced that they're pushing mass production one more year.
Is
That's the
those
usual
pictures,
story
is
with
it the one
Tesla.
on the right?
Yes,
And the others are slate?
No, they're all.
Oh,
the
they're
different
all-
models that
they're all
project to come out
solar?
with at some point.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The thing that's 1 year from being mass produced is the one on the far right, and then the other ones are going to kind of follow. So.
There's a company in Parsippany, New Jersey that makes a covering for your solar panels. Supposedly it doesn't reduce the yield, but it's camouflage for your solar panels. So what they do is they take it, it's not in real time though, but they take a picture of your roof and then that's what they apply as a skin to your solar panel. So it kind of hides the fact that you've got solar panels there.
There is an aesthetic consideration.
Right.
Absolutely.
Which is
So
why.
solar glass is gonna be good, but, you know, all that. But the thing is, the yield of the solar glass is gonna be less, right, than traditional panels, but you've got more surface area.
Yeah, it's gonna.
So
cover.
overall, it's probably gonna be a wash, and you'll have the aesthetic saved for whatever building you're on.
For the panelists who have the installs in place, are you all using net metering? And I guess for the experts, is there something between expensive on-site battery storage and net metering that gives you local, temporary, offline access, things like that?
So I've owned an electric vehicle since 2013, so I have 100,000 complete gasless miles. During that time, we have been without power, I would say probably at least 15 or 16 times for extended periods, right? So turns out I got a 24 kilowatt battery with wheels on it, right? So it's a simple matter, really, less than $100, you can export the power from that car to your house. Not very elegant, but if you're out, if you're without power.
I was charging my phone in the Prius in a recent power outage.
Right, exactly.
The
Same idea.
Scaled up, right?
Same exact idea.
So it is worth mentioning, I think it's surprising to most people, that if the power goes out, you also do not have power, even if you have solar panels.
Well, that's what is attractive about batteries, but.
It's to protect the utility workers who are out there trying to get your power back on.
Right.
They don't want you feeding excess electricity to the grid and electrocuting somebody.
So what I do with my solar array, I have a thing called an islanding inverter. So I'm in self-supply mode. Since we put it up, and I guess 2 years ago, we're up to about 12 million watt hours so far, right? The islanding inverter does have circuitry in it so that when the grid power goes off, I stay on. Sunny Boy also has that feature. They shut off and then they come back on. I would recommend against getting like a Solar Edge or any of the ones that totally shut you off, because that's old 1970s thinking, right? What we need now is inverters that will keep you on, that will integrate your electric vehicle or your stationary storage from, say, a used car battery, like a used Nissan Leaf battery. I just bought a 2011 Nissan Leaf, brand new to me, right? And it's got a battery that's going to still let that car go maybe 50, 60 miles per charge. But when I go to replace that battery, I'll pay maybe $2,000, or maybe I'll pay $19.95 a month. I don't know, they got both models now. And I'll take that old battery and I'll use that for my stationary storage. So there's no need to go out and buy a gas generator, and you kill a lot of birds with the same stone, right? So I've heard about return on investment. Don't get solar because you're going to get any money out of it. I didn't do that. I got solar because it's the right thing to do to save the environment, to make it a livable biosphere for the future, right? I got myself off of carbon. That's why I did it. And why did I get an electric car? I got the electric car for the same reason. Turns out I can actually back my house up with the electric car. It's a win-win, right? So what's my return on investment? 3 years. Because I bought the solar panels with the gasoline that I didn't spend at the pump, which is about $13,000 since 2013.
And Noah was talking about the microgrids, and one of the greatest yields I've seen from the advancement of solar is the advancement of power electronics. I'm talking about the N-phase microinverter. They're going to have what's called the IQ8, and I think it's coming out in Q1 or Q2 of next year, where you're going to have that capability of staying on while the grid is off. So that functionality that saves the electricians that are working on the lines while also providing you the power that you need in a power outage, that's going to exist sometime early next year. Somebody raise their hand?
Yeah, I just want to point something out too. Like generally on the end here, clearly like you're proficient electrical engineer, maybe I wasn't sure, but like so it's really someone like a regular homeowner that wants to go rooftop solar. I think it's really important to understand you don't need to be an engineer, understand the difference between these kind of inverters that switch off completely or partially, which I love the idea of partial. But that's why you want to go. These talks we've had today, you want to go with one of these solar companies that can really come and sit down with you and explain all this, and they actually take care of all of it. Like you don't have to know anything about watts. You don't know you have the difference between a watt and a watt to get solar on your house. You just got to get one of these folks to come to your house, and that's why I chose a local solar states. It's local, and they don't give me any money. I haven't met the guy once since I had dinner with him that one time. But if you choose a local place, they come and sit down a while and they talk to you because they have a lot of skin in the game locally, and they explain the whole thing to me, and they actually do all the work of figuring out like, is it going to make sense for you? And your point is very well taken. You may be doing this just for the good of the earth and your progeny or whomever. And so the cutoff can be 20 years, whatever. But anyway, so my point is, you don't have to. We're a bunch of nerds. I love this stuff too, and I'm always hacking and blowing things up. But you don't have to know any of this stuff to do rooftop solar. All you have to do is know the right person to call to come to your house and talk to you. And I had one person come first, and I guess what's his name's not here, so he's not going to yell at me. But solar, who owns the big one? What's the guy's name? The crazy guy.
Elon Musk.
Thank you. Elon's not here, so he's not going to attack me. But their folks came out and they just, it was like a sales pitch. I really felt like they were trying to get me to buy a used car very quickly. And the local place, they came out and explained it, and the points that you made, Peter, I guess, on the slides where the local people have a lot of they have people that are really dedicated to being employed, and they have long-term employees. So when the solar, the people that I use, solar states, when they came, these guys, you can tell they've been doing, and women, they've been doing it for like years. Again, so they knew, and they were explaining, and I was like, okay, cool. I don't have to know any of this stuff. Now later on, I geeked out and understood all the math and everything, but in the beginning, I was like, okay, cool, do it, So anyway, that was I want to just kind of offset because it's kind of scary when we start talking watts and kilowatt hours, and it gets kind of scary. And honestly, as an engineer, I'm an electrical engineer, and I got confused sometimes between the difference between when you buy a 6 kilowatt system, right? What's the difference between that and it produces, my system's a 6 kilowatt system, but it produces 7,000 kilowatt hours a year. Like, whoa, they're different. And so those two numbers are confusing to me, even though I had years of calculus and stuff. So you don't have to know any of it. You just have to have good people that are selling the system.
Question on the floor?
Go ahead.
As less of a true believer and more of an agnostic in this area, for those of you who installed it, what was your payoff time?
Mine was 8 years. I was an early adopter though, so my system cost $38,000 minus the the rebates. I ended up $18,000 out of pocket. So mine was 8 years, I think. I'm 12 years in, so I'm totally in the green right now.
I would say we didn't keep track all that carefully. We bought ours right before the big natural gas boom when electricity went way down. I mean, if I wanted to make money, I should have done something different. Invested in the stock market 6 years ago would have been a good idea. But in terms of also, doing good for the environment and, showing pride and spreading the word that this is a good thing to do, I'm very happy that we did.
I think ours is like 3 years, so I got another year, it'll be paid for.
Okay. No, I was interested. Last time I looked at it, they gave me projections that talked about how the rate of electricity was no way up, and it was just before natural gas came in, and none of those predictions were right.
Good point. My 8 years was based off of the original electricity cost. If I redid my spreadsheet, I'd probably get.
Yeah, I would say I think they told us about 8 years when we bought it. It probably turned out to be a bit like 10 or something because the utility rates went down.
Right.
But I'm not sad that I did it.
You mentioned that the inverters need to be replaced like every decade or so because of the failure rates. Is that accurate for both? Because I was just quoted panel side conversion versus.
Yeah, it's a little different depending on which one you pick. So what we have is the Solar Edge, where it's got on-panel electronics, but then also a central inverter. So the on-panel electronics should be fine for a long time. The central inverter is probably going to go after 15 years or something. This bottom one, the SMA inverter, right now, I think they expect those to also last 15 years or so. The N-phase microinverters, the ones that start more expensive, they I think have 25-year warranties. So hopefully by the time you'd have to replace the inverter, everything will be solid state and then they'll last way longer than what they do right now. But for now, or at least the stuff that I bought 6 years ago, we're expecting probably to have to replace it once during the lifetime of the panels.
We'll take one more question and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, this woman had
I'll yield.
I'm just wondering, are ground systems more or less expensive than roof systems? Because I have to tell you, putting holes in my roof, leaks, not doing it for me, I know you do flashing and everything, but trust me, I've had so many leak problems on my roof. So I'm just wondering, what is it, I would think it would be cheaper to do it on the ground, but maybe I'm missing something. Does anybody know, like, if you had the space in your yard, put them on the ground and
I
run
think
a
just
house?
the racking is slightly different. On the rooftop solar, there's rail racking typically, and there's mounts that the rails mount to. When it's ground-based, there's additional things that could be there. Like if you want it elevated, like for example, if you want it off the ground, you want to maybe have some ground underneath you, that would cost more money.
Yeah, I don't know if it's, my impression is, because depending on where you live, if you live in the country somewhere, but you're here, so you're not that far in the country, but I mean, you have to, the big thing about your house is it's above a lot of the trees, and the trees really matter, as this gentleman was saying, like, you get one tree, it'll take you out of commission as far as this whole possibility. So, you may find you have to build this huge structure to get your panels up high enough. The cost, you just donate the money to elephants or something else. It's going to help the world in a different place. I mean, in a different way, it might not be smart to do all the structure to produce some electricity. You know, it just may not make sense. You can invest, for example, if you buy, not to crush this whole thing, but if you can invest in solar SRECs and not even buy solar panels and just get all your electricity from electric providers that get all their power from solar panels out west somewhere. You can invest in that, spend a little more money, and you'd be investing in not rooftop solar, but you'd be investing in energy, renewable energy without, go for all the carbon emissions of building this giant platform to make yourself feel good and have a few panels. You know what I mean? Am I being harsh? Is that kind of
No,
correct?
it depends where your heart is.
But investing in SRECs doesn't put more solar on the ground.
What's that?
Investing in SRECs, just like investing in the stock market, doesn't put more solar on the
Right.
ground.
You're not investing in a
Right.
local rooftop solar.
Right, exactly.
Which is-
So like a mosaic model would be better because they're actually putting solar up. But, trading SRECs isn't really gonna help, solve the climate change problem, by itself.
Right.
Can I just throw in one quick
Yeah,
question?
absolutely.
Because we got a panel of engineers and I'm completely not the engineer, but I do recognize that we have to turn over our technology at Moore's rate times 3 or whatever. So when you talk about things lasting 10, 15, 25 years, and you're looking at investments, right? As an engineer, you all are thinking, but might be thinking the technology is going to be XYZ different in 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, right.
So what's the projections of the change of the technology?
So basically, the cost, the technology is driving the two things. The cost of the panels is going down. That's the biggest piece, and it's getting more efficient as you go. So you're getting more money, more bang for your buck. That's the difference. They still produce the same electricity in 30 years than they do today. That's not going to change. So the only thing is that the dollars get cheaper as you go forward. Does that make sense?
So you're not seeing any major scientific changes on the horizon?
So I would say.
Well, actually, there's concentrated solar. So I think it's Lemon Peel makes a concentrated solar array. They take a giant ball, basically made out of plastic, fill it with water. It becomes a giant magnifying glass, and they have concentrated solar on one side. So it's a portable tracker, not very large at all, not a very big footprint, but a pretty big return. So concentrated solar in your own yard is actually a real possibility. That's a major game changer because you could set it on the ground, thing tracks the sun all day long. Yeah.
When does that happen?
What's that?
Can we start the
They're
next
building it
round?
now. They already have.
We could talk about technology in the future all day, but you ask any one of these guys that are in the black if they regret doing it however many years ago, not a single one will say.
I think we're ready for the next panel.
But again, guys, sign up on your way out for the Solarize program and to get the information that you guys saw here today. I'm going to wrap it up here for our